Bhagavate Shivanandaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vishnudevanandaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Gajananam Bhuraganaadisevitam Kapittajambasarabhakshitam Umasudam Shokabinashakaranam Namami Vihneshwara Padupankajam Shadananam Kunkumaraktavarnam Mahamarindivyamayuravahanam Rudrasya Sunam Surasainanatham Guham Sadaham Sharanam Prapadye Ya Kundendu Tusharahaladhavala Ya Shubhravastra Ya Veena Varadandamantidakara Ya Shveta Padmasana Ya Brahma Chitta Shankara Prabhativedeva Isada Pujita Samam Patu Saraswati Bhagavati Nishesha Jadhyapaha Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Sachidananda Murte Nishpampajaya Shanta Shri Shivandaya Te Namaha Shri Shandevanandaya Te Namaha Om Sarvamangalmangalye Shive Savartha Sadhike Sharanye Trembake Gauri Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Om Shanti 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 Om Peace 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 Om Sadguru Shivan Maharaj Ki Jai Om Shri Shandevan Maharaj Ki Jai Om Namah Shivaya. Good evening everyone. Tonight we are doing the webinar called The Choosing a New Path. And this is the kind of a webinar I like to do before the new year arrives. It is really a look at the resolutions that we generally like to take and create before we enter into the new year. But I like to mix it a little bit with some principles of healthy spiritual living. So that's why I do call it Choosing a New Path. Now, we are in the middle of winter time here, and the new year is approaching. And during the winter time, we know that the conditions are less favorable for any kind of manifestation, right? For creative process that takes outwardly. But the conditions that we find in the winter time are more favorable for inner work, for the practices of contemplation, meditation, for turning inwards, for just basically entering within ourselves. You know, when the summer comes, we're out, we want to be out, we don't want to be within homes, we don't want to have the books even in our hands, we want to just be part of life, we love to be in a life. But when the winter comes, when the rains come, especially the snow, what it generally does, it brings your mind right in. So one of the Chinese words for rain, for example, is or means going in, or going within. So by quietening down, the Mother Nature herself inspires us, teaches us, and invites us to go deep within ourselves in order to prepare the conditions for the birth of the most wonderful qualities that are going to be obviously harvested later on in the year. And we could also say, because it's the Christmas time now, so that this going deep within is a wonderful time to prepare the conditions for the birth of that what we call the consciousness of Jesus. Now, this identical work that is taking place in nature itself is also taking place within the psyche of each human being. Now, the Lord has endowed us with great creative powers, the powers that are beyond anybody's comprehension, beyond any measure. Our life really is nothing but that of a constant process of creativity. And so we are the artists in a way. We're the artists that we're seeking for. We are that artist that we're seeking for. Whether that's a musician or sculptor or painter or any other. You are the one, you paint the picture, you write your song, you compose your music, you write your story, your life story, your 2019 story that is coming up now. So what you're doing, you're projecting yourself into the future, really, and you try to envision the things to come. This is very identical to what happens according to the scriptures in the mind of the Creator. He is envisioning the things yet to come. So this is how it becomes. So let our future then be bright and as full of joy as it possibly can be. And just remember, just as a sculptor uh, visualizes the form within a rock or within a piece of wood, so we also should take this time to envision that image of what we would like to be and become. So the truth about the joy and hope rest in fact in cherishing ideals. And the idea of New Year resolutions, often people misunderstand this, is actually rooted in the psychological need of an ideal. We need an ideal. It is an ideal that kind of enlivens the person, animates the person, because what happens is that every life follows an ideal or its ideal. Every life is colored by the ideal. Every life takes on the character of that ideal and eventually becomes that ideal. This is how it is. So the ideals, the resolutions that we make deeply and honestly within ourselves dominate our life, whether we're conscious of it or not, it doesn't matter. The ideals, the resolutions are all part of what we know as taking vows, putting the seeds very deeply in our subconscious mind, and then also consciously working to have these seeds, bear the fruits. This is the idea. So the truth behind the resolutions, behind all these ideals, is to try to constantly and persistently be animated by it. So whatever we try to persistently express and we try to live it, we try to, achieve it, of course, and visualize it as frequently as we can, that ideal eventually will become our reality. So the goal here, also in this talk, is to help you make these ideas become alive, and also to remind you that our goal is to live with as much consciousness as we can. So we want to live life consciously. There's nothing more sublime about life than living a life consciously, and this is what we humans have been given as a gift. We can take this to the fullest advantage, and also we would like to be able to live in addition, and it's just another aspect of living with greater consciousness, and that is to live with greater sensitivity. This is one and the same thing. Before we even venture into this wonderful subject of resolutions, I would like to say that this is the time of the element fire. You have to keep always this in mind. We live in very specific times. Every period of time, especially in the life of humanity, is dominated by a particular element. So we have four elements that we know in the West. That's the earth, water, fire, air, and also we could say space in the Indian system. So this is the time of the element fire. So what we need to know is also we need to know as much as we can about how to live in time of fire. So there are a couple of things I would like to say. One is that the humanity will learn a great deal about this fire in all its forms. Unfortunately, some of them are not so happy, as we know. Fire by itself, of course, on another hand, it accelerates things. And so you may feel yourself at times as if you were racing to, without even knowing where. So you're racing in an unknown direction. That's kind of a feeling sometimes we have about the speed of our life. And also we feel like we haven't got the control over it. So one aspect of fire is that it often has that unknown aspect, that unknown consequence aspect. You know, it's like a fire may begin a little bit, and then once it reaches its fullness, we all the things we thought we knew will happen. They happen beyond our apprehension. So these things are also part of the risks that the humanity is taking with the acceleration in terms of its technology, wars, weapons, nuclear things, and all this. So this is the fire on a lower level, but what the spiritual aspirants do, they use the fire on a high level. So what this means is that on a higher level, the fire is a part of your intelligence, part of your wisdom, it's part of your love, and it's part of your health, everything else. So this is what we're trying to concentrate on. I'm not saying this in order to actually necessarily scare anybody. I think what we need to do is to have a great respect for the fire element. We should daily meditate and praise the sun, being the a visible manifestation of the fire element, and learn how to work with fire within your body, within your mind, so that it doesn't consume either your body or your mind. So this is the idea. We come now to this wonderful subject, which is called the New Year resolutions, the seeds of great self-transformation. Okay, so everything is written there on the board, but nevertheless, we want to say a few things. We know that the new year is a new year. And the question may arise, what is so new about the new year? Well, we may say that the new aspect or the aspect of newness about the new year is simply in the mind. But at the same time, we know that there are rhythms, there are seasons in nature, and there is something that is psychologically takes place within the mind, and that is that the mind gets filled with hope. Even a prisoner would think, okay, maybe in the next year I will be released and I will be free. You know, even the person who suffers from deep depression would say, I hope that my mind becomes lighter in the next year. So any or one of the challenges that we may carry at this given time, we simply have a hope that they will be reduced, transformed in some ways, and not just that, we're willing to actually put some effort in that direction, which is important. So that's why I called these resolutions this approach to new resolutions is that you treat them as the seeds of your great self-transformation. I'm the believer in self-empowerment. Before thinking of a self-empowerment, I like to believe in obviously in a spiritual system. I understand that a human mind that is filled with all kinds of tendencies, the gunas, remember that we call tamas and rajas, the tendency to darkness, to slowness, to resistance, to laziness, that's tamas. And rajas, of course, is the opposite, or tries to achieve its happiness by bouncing from one thing to another. So the restlessness is the rajas type. Because of these two, we're not really able to be our own guide properly. So I always say I am a believer in self-empowerment, but after you have been initiated and you've been serving somebody for a little while, or if you not have done that, then the best thing would be to simply follow the system, do your best, and perhaps have somebody that can guide you a little bit along the way. So these resolutions, these little vows that you take, your efforts that you make to realize them are nothing but the wonderful tools of self-empowerment, right? So the objective, as you can see in the second paragraph of the resolution, is to not try to transform all of your nature, because we know that that's not going to happen, that there will be a resistance in our nature, there will be a kickback. So what we're trying to do is to simply create the seeds and nurture them regularly so that they, in the given time, they give us nice sweet fruits. That's the idea. It would be unreasonable to try to expect try to change the things we would like to see changed and transformed, since it does take a very long time to change human nature. And this we must understand that, like you want to transform your cotton cloth into silken cloth, you can only do it as one thread at a time. This was my teacher used to say this. For the world peace, I use it also in in application to how we actually build good qualities in us and how do we eradicate something that we do not want it to be part of us anymore. One one little thread at a time. One thread of kindness will gradually make all of your all of your cloth, your material, full of kindness, which is your mind. One little thread like that of courage, one thread of good action here and there. This is what I believe in, and I think that works. So we cannot force any growth, and we have to remember that. So before we get into the structure of this, we have to remember one thing. Many people uh, try to make resolves and they fail. And I think if they fail for whatever reason. I failed in my resolution many times. But I will tell you an important thing. Even when you think you're failing but you're trying, you're not really failing. I think the only failure is when the person does not stand up again and try again. I think that's how it generally happens. But the reason why people actually tend to fail is that often they underestimate the strength that they have, the capacity they have. So they're trying to, let's say, lift 200 pounds, whereas in reality they can only lift 15 pounds. So this is like, if you were to make like 10 difficult vows and you want to accomplish them within 7 days. One is to wake up every morning at, let's say, 5 in the morning. And then it's to do this much of meditation. And then it's to do that kind of practice. Then you want to sustain it for a whole week. It could be done, but if you have never done anything similar like that, you will find it obviously overwhelming. And no, nobody wants to think for themselves that they're not able to do something. So there is something quite wonderful even when the person tries to accomplish something big and they fail, because ultimately they must at some level believe that they can accomplish it, and there may be a time when they will. Not maybe, they certainly will. So the whole process is like that. So people are also failing because sometimes they don't really want to change. Like we think we want to change, but we don't want to change. So we set these resolves because everybody's setting up some resolves, and you feel also hopeful and inspired. But then underneath, really, you're not quite sure of it. You've set quite a high value on something that is maybe detrimental to your health, to your way of thinking, to your relationships, or whatever it is. But you set a high value, which means you're not going to give it up now. And so it is a lot of time. This battle within the mind is simply trying to change the value that you set on something. So we will see how that works. So we also have to have the right methodology for working with the mind, and that's extremely important. You have to have a right method and several other things that are necessary. For example, I would say that it's essential to keep a record of your practices, right? So the record means of a type of a diary, several diaries that you're going to become keen on keeping, because these kind of journals and diaries is essential, for, as I said, keeping the record. For example, if you do not keep a diary, you will either overestimate, underestimate, undervalue, or miscalculate your spiritual practices, your achievements, or even your failings. The mind is like when it's not pure, which means when the sattva doesn't dominate the mind, it's a little bit like a warped kind of a mirror. Everything is perceived differently from what really is, and that is the truth for all, sentient beings in a sense, unless they are completely, realized. So here is what you have. You have a couple of things. One is you study your mind. So that's obviously a commitment you made. You set your some goals and resolutions. Then you do every night, you do a little self-reflection. We'll go into this. Then you're going to also, you know, strategize how to work with specific challenges. Number five, which is missing now, is your spiritual diary, which is what I think is the most helpful. And now, when you're working with your mind, here's another thing you have to remember. You have to have a sense of accountability. Now, I'm not into any kind of self-beating practices. All I'm here is to us it all the I'm trying to concentrate on and emphasize is the honesty. And the mind is very good trickster, and as much as it pretends to be honest, is really not honest. So what's also useful is that whatever you systematize for yourself to be a part of your creative process for the next year, with all the ups and downs and all that, is to have some form of accountability. So it's basically to pick a friend or friends, or to organize a little team of people, a club that will be focused on maintaining, helping you, in fact, bring to fruition all your resolutions that you set up for yourself. You see, it's different. If you have a friend that knows about what you're trying to achieve, let's say you're trying to not eat sweets. And so you told your friend that you stopped eating sweets, but now you're really tempted, you want to eat sweets all day long, or you want to eat them tomorrow, or you probably didn't eat them today, so you want to eat them next week, something like that. Then, if you did not already share this information with your friend, it would have been easier to just simply give into that feeling and go and enjoy yourself. However, when you share something with your friend or your colleague, or let's say of your find somebody, of course, that is in agreement with what you do. So your friend, your partner, or your teacher, whoever it is, you want to have the diary of something your goals shared. And then you have to take a time and discuss all the pros and cons of different things, and the methods of mastering certain things, and the methods of what to do when you're failing. It's a little bit like a modern way of confession, right? So confession, yeah. So you go to church and you confess, because the confession allows you to release things from your subconscious mind. You don't carry them deeply within. The truth is known. It's okay. You've done something. Similarly here, but I like to look at the diary not exactly only accountable for the things that we're not good at. This is where we need to shift our focus. It's a different paradigm, is to try to nurture the positive and all the good things that you're doing, rather than the things that you're failing in. So that's something, it's a part of how to really keep an account and a record of your practices without really being hard on yourself. Okay, so now we come to the next thing. As you can see that here it says that now okay, one more thing, sorry, is that when the reason why people also do not necessarily succeed is because they want that success to take place now, today, this week, or this month. And the mind simply doesn't work that way. And then also they don't believe in small victories and small, consistent, uh, small but consistent changes. They tend to, always go like gung ho into this transformation of their mind, and that just doesn't work. So, all kinds of things are there. There's often underestimated resistance of the mind, and we need to really understand this and respect this. Okay, so now when approached in the right manner, you can see down there the same mind that is now the problem will eventually become the solution. Now, the mind that is the problem is the tamas rajas mind, tamo raja guna, and the mind that is your higher mind, which exists there, of course, but it's not necessarily given a voice. It's got a different voice. And then that would be a friend. So now what we're going to do is we're going to think of the how to actually look at our year that is coming up right now. Okay, so the first thing to do is to do a little meditation on your past year. But perhaps for this, you may need to take maybe an hour or, maybe even some greater portion of the day to just kind of contemplate and think about, you know, how your year went, what happened in your year, and you kind of take a peek into the past year. And so let's say we can start with this one. You take a stock of some of your experiences and expectations, you write them down, and then you can write perhaps start off with biggest challenges. Or you can start with things such as what are the most important things in my life? Let's start in a more positive way. What are the most important things to me? What were the most important things in last year and what they are in general? So there will be usually things such as our spiritual practice, our health, our friends, children, partners, whoever you have, or if you don't have, and also, of course, maybe financial stability. These are the things that are usually the challenges, and there may be some others also. So uh, you can see here that we can identify the weaknesses in this way. Let's say I write 5, or you can write 3. Now, do you and can you see any ways of reducing or eradicating them? So let's say eradication of different negative qualities may be a longer term, and it usually is, but you can also see whether something is a very long term or short term flows. Maybe you started to watch TV more, so it's a short term flow, hopefully, and you have a long-term flaws which typically things psychological nature have been bothering us for a long time, or some worry, some fear, something like that. Next thing, being creative. Suppose, let's say you're a therapist. You say, okay, so the therapist is asking you, you're seeing any strategies you can come up with and deal with them. Now, even whether you're able to use these strategies or not, it doesn't really matter. But the important thing is to, say that you have them. Okay. Then let's say you have a strategy of 5 steps. And then what all you need to do is to make only the first step immediately or as soon as you're able to. Now, what this is like this. You want to start your resolutions. Let's say you start spending some time today or tomorrow, and then you try to live some of them, especially the daily ones, the practices, as if you've already accomplished them. So it means without waiting for your new year to come, and then you're saying, okay, I'm going to now do um, this practice and that thing. You say, okay, I'm starting tomorrow. So let's say I want to give up sweets. This is my little point I want to give up. So it's a tough one, right? Because let's say I lived all my life with sweets. They were always around, somebody will give them, then I liked them. They were my emotional refuge for different things. And now I'm trying to do a big thing, right? So what's going to happen is instead of waiting for the 1st of January, I'm going to do it today or tomorrow. And this way, obviously, when you're starting to work with a habit that is very deeply entrenched, the first day or two feel as if the half of the world has died and there's no joy, depression is there, anger is coming up, and this is exactly what people experience when they're coming off any kind of an addiction. And we are here talking not just food, we can talk about anything. Every time you try to change the direction to which the energy of your mind goes, this is going to happen. There will be some resistance, and all you need to do know is to obviously, if you have issue with the will, if you're not sure if you can succeed at it, remember that friend that you're going to share it with, call them immediately, or whoever the person is and say, okay, this is what I'm doing. You know, you need the support. This is important. When you're working with the weaknesses, you need the support. But perhaps a better way of starting this is also thinking of your strengths and for some days also contemplate the strengths. So let's see what that looks like. So now I think of what kind of 5 strengths do I have? Some people will say, oh my God, I don't have that many. So let's see. I have some honesty. I have this and that. So how can I uh, create a strategy that will help me enhance that quality? And as I'm creating a strategy that will enhance the quality, what's going to happen is going to push the need of these lower desires to kind of come up. You know, the very focus on something makes that thing alive. So if you focus too much on weaknesses, then they become very alive. It becomes difficult to work with them. But if you bring your friends in, which are your strengths, then you're going to say, okay, how can I have this one up? Now, ultimately, even your weaknesses are your friends, but that not when you succumb to them, but as teachers. And you have to know, obviously, the psychology of working with them, which is everybody's challenge. So, how can you perfect your strengths? And naturally, what are the steps you can actually follow? And the last thing is make the first step immediately as soon as you're able to. So you live your strengths to a higher level prior to the beginning of the new year. And then we can think of the highest ideals, what are the fears, greatest hopes, and of course, what are the challenges. These are all the same kind of things. And now it is only when you have had a good overview and a very good peek at your past year is that now you're ready to create your resolutions for a new year. This is the idea. We do not create resolutions that lack some logical foundation and some logical analysis of the previous things. It's a little bit similar like in accounting. You're not creating a budget without taking into account your real profit and loss of the last year. You know, so you want to make sure that you have some foundational knowledge that is, you know, done in a detached way, and you're going to see what you can do. Okay. So the next thing is that whatever we want to do and we're planning to do, we should try our best to do it as constantly as possible. Now, comes down to some especially sadhanas and some principles like this. Swami Shivananda says very beautifully, try to be ruthlessly consistent with the most important things in your life. Whether it's the thing about wisdom or it's about love, you must try to be consistent. If you're a friend, you have to be consistent friend. If you love somebody, your love should be consistent. That will naturally lead you to a higher forms of love and higher forms of wisdom and everything. So what happens is that the regularity, the constancy in itself inspires hope. It brings greater joy, right? Um, it's creates the rhythm, and the rhythm is essentially what life loves. And the rhythm is essentially what life is all about. So this is an important thing, and you want to, in the big constant meaning, try to be as deeply involved with something as you possibly can on a regular basis, even if that means 5 minutes of meditation, 5 minutes of asanas, 5 minutes of pranayama, 5 minutes of selfless giving. I would say even if you just go to these tiny little numbers that we are talking about. Now, all that is going to gradually create some shift, paradigm shift in your mind. You're not going to be the same person. You know, sometimes it's difficult to measure that, but it is possible to do that. So my advice here is be practical. Okay. Our problem, of course, and especially in the West, especially in the spiritual life, especially people who read a lot, all of us, we love words, but we don't see the words have to become actions. So we obviously are consumers. We're the consumers even of the book and the philosophies and everything. So I ask you to be practical because nobody really benefits purely from pure theory, right? I may say that we have plenty of words to live by. There's plenty of books written, right? So what you need to do is to make some one or two or three or four principles the reality of your life. So unfortunately, we consume everything in a sense that we take it in and we digest it, we don't digest it fully, and we let go of it. So that means also spiritual talk, spiritual doctrines, teachers, and everything. So, in a way, the problem with our civilization and where we find that we are inefficient even with these resolutions is that we worship words and we do not worship positive actions. So some people go through these book readings and lectures and stuff like this, like people go through stacks of paper or they go through the socks in a sense, but they don't really assimilate anything. So what you're trying to do is to make the certain principle live in you and become part of your routine, part of your thinking process and everything. So do let the many be around and different teachings and different things. Get inspired, that's fine, but live one really, really deeply. So this is the secret. Okay, so now we come to another interesting thing, the analysis of time, right? So you already know this from before, but I want to just emphasize again. We must, even as spiritual aspirants, consider where our time goes. How do we manage it? You know, we should think and we should understand that as we get older and as we move into the future, that we're left with an ever lessening quantum of time available to us to complete what we would like to complete. You know, this is sometimes this happens with people. For example, they wasted all their life in different things, and now they're all of a sudden, let's say they chattered, they did useless things. They read the things that just lower the consciousness. They watched the things that lower the consciousness. And of course, what happened is that they they enjoy themselves. Okay, that's fine. And now they lost a great length of their life, or the time of life, and now they all of a sudden they want to put a double time, which is what people also do with resolutions. They try to now triple it up in order to kind of, mend for what they thought that they've done wrong. However, instead of doing that, which really doesn't work, it would be better to moderate and to be moderated and to be balanced, patient, and quiet. And so to be able to train your mind to utilize for the true purpose an unoccupied moment that takes place in your day. This is important. So this is the idea. The time and energy are two things. They're one and the same. Time is a form of energy. We need to investigate this. This is a part of the reason why we did not get to where we wanted to be last year now. And so this is what we're inviting you to do. Where is your time going? Some people shopping, talking, thinking, okay, we know that. Some people sleeping, not some. We're all doing something like that. So the key here, as you can see, it's the small victory, small improvement, but under this condition, as regularly as possible. See, the nature is the believer of small installments and small plans, and she does accept you where you are, but she's not going to let you stay there forever. Even though the nature accepts people where they are, it doesn't bully them to change and become somebody else, nevertheless, the nature works for that self or consciousness, and she makes sure that the people use the nature in themselves to for their evolution. So therefore, even though she is patient, she still wants you to move forward. Okay, then obviously here it says do not overload the wheel by too many expectations. So we will try that. The next thing will come here is very simple. The three practices that I obviously did not talk about this today, but the development of the subconscious mind, the will, and imagination. It's all part of getting stronger and better at things. This is the study thing here is the part of the idea that we try to live what we read. That's the simple thing. Now, the next thing to discuss would be this one. The acceptance. This is one thing that everyone has a problem with. The reason being is that we are often overwhelmed by the amount of work that needs to be done in our own mind, in our own bodies, and so how to work with oneself. I would say be patient with yourself like you are with your child who, that is learning to walk. But even with a child that is learning to walk, you want to have a certain form of firmness, like when it comes to training. Now, not obviously they're walking, they're trying the best, but in the training of a child, we do the same thing. We're firm but gentle. So similarly with your own mind, you're firm but you're gentle. And Swami Shivananda here says beautifully, put your heart, mind, intellect, soul, even in your smallest actions, and this is the secret to success. So here, that's another thing. Let's say you do a little cooking, you do a little some cleaning. It doesn't need to be a highly intellectual work, but what really we could do is to put a little heart in that, a little mind, a little concentration, and that will make a great act of cleaning or cooking, something like that. People do not know the magic that takes place when the heart and mind are linked in that presence, in that awareness, in actions that we do. So this is helpful. And William Jordan, who was one of the great proponents of positive thinking in the 18th century, 19th century, says man is never truly great merely for what he is, but ever for what he may become. Alexander the Great conquered the whole world except Alexander. So I love this reminders. So now a couple more things before we move to the practical analysis of the ideas that we're going to do. First of all, I would suggest that this year we try to commit to not owning too much, not possessing too much, to be committed to not be possessed by things, but as real, spiritual aspirants is try to live less with less things, and not just less things physically, but also how mind should be cleared of all excess. So that could be excessive ideas, plans, whatever it is. A cluttered mind is an infertile ground for any sublime ideas. And also, in addition to this, I would say, as you're searching for your happiness, you know that it is within you. You all know that. Therefore, by trimming the things that we own and we try to kind of clutter our mind with, we also try to learn not to run in hundreds of different directions for our own happiness. This is connected. Okay, so the next thing I would suggest before we go to that, these are some new ideas that came to me today. Try to go to an ashram couple times a year or once a year if necessary, and to step out. I love the idea of vacation, but I love the idea of the spiritual vacation, to step out of being, step out of your own reality that you created, being basically living in a reality that you're kind of encaptured by. So this is the secret. Okay. To help you work with your mind, one of the trickiest things that I found myself was simply that sometimes we set we have two values on one and the same thing. What this means is that we must try to not contradict our own movements, our own words or actions. See, that's the tricky thing. Let's say on one side I put a high value on something, on the other side let's say I want to enjoy something, that I don't want to enjoy it, I want to renounce it. So you set the two values in the same thing, therefore it becomes an unworkable situation. But even that is workable, because what we do, we try to reduce the value that is negative and increase the value that's positive. So the secret we're working here obviously is working with the will, and knowing that, trying to not undo the work that you managed to do yesterday, or the progress that you managed to create yesterday. Try not to work contrary to your goals. So this is where the sattva guna has to come in. For example, to work contrary, meaning to try to renounce something that you also want to enjoy. It's a hard one. So remember that when you try to change your vibration of your mind or your thoughts, you are really in reality trying to deny to be defined by your present state, present conditions, or present state of mind. So this is important. And let's see now practically where we stand. This was all kind of introduction into something which may not take a very long time, but let's see here. We were here. I would like to just mention this because you can modify it in any way you like. Reflections on positive experiences in your 2018, and then reflection on challenging experiences. And then you may say, this year I'll try to do this and this and that. The projections would be my greatest expectations for coming year to make some progress in these areas, and you can see that. Now, the rest what you see is Swami Shivananda's all kind of fashion, but necessarily effective way of disciplining oneself. I would say that some of these disciplines or some of these resolutions can be either implemented daily, or some of them weekly, and some of them monthly. So you don't need to do everything daily unless that is essential to your spiritual life. For example, meditation is essential, asana is essential, like these kind of things, whatever other practices you're doing. And then you can see here there's a little more weekly resolutions and monthly resolutions. I'll send you this so you can think about it yourself. So here's a typical resolution diary that it's 2015, sorry, it should have been later than that. But let's say I will daily work on this. I'll try not to wake up later than whatever the time. And I would try not to go to sleep later than this is the time. So it's going to be a little battle. So what you're finding here is you have, 2 weeks basically laid out. And at the very end, we also, summarize whatever can be summarized, how many times I succeeded. Usually we want that. I will meditate daily for this many minutes, let's say 10 minutes. I'll do breathing for 5 minutes. So of course, you have to calculate your available time. Postures, some simple things. I will keep my desk clean. Whatever it is that you need, you can just add here. I would try to develop these qualities for 5 minutes daily. So the whole week could be dedicated to kindness. So I will open the door kindly. I will move my pen kindly. I will fold my papers kindly. I will make my bed kindly. And of course, working with other people, I'll try to do as much kind acts as I can. And I will study. So you can write these books. How many pages? 1 page of this book, 1 paragraph of the book. Don't worry about studying books. Try to concentrate on quality of your study, memorization, application of what you studied, rather than, just reading book after book after book. This year, I will try to increase my concentration. I found that because of the lack of concentration in certain areas, I wasn't really achieving what I wanted to achieve. Then some food things. For example, of course, we talk about food a lot in our webinars, but you can see here, I'll try to chew better. AM, PM. So just put a checks if you did it or you didn't do it. Eliminating sugar or any other foods. Will think of my choices before I eat, and perhaps try not to eat late. This is a secret. There will be a weekly, daily practice. It may look overwhelming, but it's actually not. It will sit in your mind. You can carry this paper with you if you need to, and then you will be able to remember. The weekly resolutions, could be exercising, walking, or not working with computers and using phones, Facebook, any of that. And let's say you won't complain at least 2 times. Maybe you're great at not complaining at all, but you say twice this week, 2 days, I will try to step out of complaining. And you can sing a happy song 3 times a week. I think that's not an exaggeration, okay? So that's this first page, and there's a couple more things. You can actually enlarge this as much as you like. So spend less time on computers, work out more, don't waste time, anything you like. I'm only giving you here examples of things. So this is the secret of keeping the little resolutions as very gently, I would say. I love the gentle approach. I lived the hard approach for a long time, and I think it's good to have that too, but it's nice to also have a gentle approach where mind really rejoices in doing this exercise. The two things you have to remember: if you're lacking daily practice, which is your daily resolutions in terms of your meditation, regularity, if you don't meditate every day, you don't, do your mantras, your prayers, whatever it is, you find it's very difficult to enter into the daily battle of life. Very difficult. You get conquered by the negative energies, negative things, negative beings immediately. So to protect yourself, to shield yourself, you have to give yourself daily a spiritual food. And this is important. The second thing that also helps is to, if you have to exercise your discriminative power. Therefore, if there is no discrimination, we call it viveka, then what's going to happen is that our spiritual values, our spiritual qualities, virtues, achievements will leak as if through a bucket with full of holes. So this is an important to remember. We need to keep that also going. So what we need to protect ourselves from, also this urgency. Whenever we have a little time and we have nothing to do, we rush to doing silly things. Very often this is the truth with people. We become restless. We want to meet our friends. Of course, we can go for a walk, do different things. Yeah, but we're not saying that that's bad. What's important is that before you venture into doing something on the time when you have some time for yourself, try to contemplate these things. How to get the greater understanding of why you live, or your life's purpose. The second thing is you have to try to learn how you must live in order to achieve that life's purpose. And the third thing is to think about what should be done and what should not be done. The fourth thing is to think about is what is the best way of escaping from this samsara, the cycle of birth and death, from this ignorance and falsehood and pain in which we live. So basically this is an important thing. And obviously the answer would be hopefully around this idea is that if you want to be able to conquer anything in your nature, you need one important quality, and that is to be and remain perfectly vigilant. And so I would like to invite you to contemplate your entry into the new year with these words, by taking this promise. I will embrace this dream, this hope, this willingness that I hold dear to my heart. I will take an action to the fulfillment of that dream or that promise. I will take a risk. you know, and this is what we try to do. Try enter into this wonderful new year in with a new quality. And I, with these words, I end this little webinar, and I wish you the best in the new year. And I hope you will be able to take some of this, what you heard today, into your daily practice. Hariom Tat Sat.